Most people think rejection ends the story. They imagine him walking away with his shoulders dropped an inch, relieved, finally free of whatever he couldn't name. They imagine you on the other side of the door, sitting with what he left behind, trying to get over him the way you get over a cold. And for a few weeks, that's exactly how it looks from the outside. But here's the thing nobody tells you. For him, that's not the end. For him, that's the moment the story starts running on a loop. You're replaying it right now, aren't you? Not the words, the room. The way he stood with one hand already in his pocket. The half-second pause before he spoke. The one that told you he'd rehearsed it. The way he didn't look at you when he said he wasn't ready, because looking at you would have made the sentence he was saying a lie. You're replaying it because you still don't know if you believed him. And the part of you that didn't, that part is the part this is for. Now, let me explain something slowly, because I don't want you to miss this. When an avoidant pulls away from you, he does it with a very specific expectation sitting in his head. He's expecting you to chase. He's expecting the long message. He's expecting the voice note at midnight where you tell him you understand, you just need him to come back. He's expecting you to soften the boundary he put up, because softening the boundary is the only way his nervous system knows how to keep the loss from being real. And here's the part most women never see coming. He didn't expect you to go silent. He expected you to beg instead. That's the equation in his head, and he has run it 100 times before with 100 other women. You speak. He withdraws. You follow. He feels briefly necessary. He pulls back further. You follow harder. He tells himself he was right to withdraw, because look how much you wanted him. Look how unstable you are without him. The pattern closes. And by the time it's over, he has a story about why he left that doesn't include what he actually did. That's the script he's been running. That's the choreography he's practiced. He knows the steps. He knows the timing. He even knows what you'll say. What he doesn't know, what he has never prepared for, is what happens when you don't say anything at all. I want to walk through this with you one piece at a time, because this is where the entire dynamic shifts, and most people miss it. He leaves. He expects the buzz of your message any minute now. He reaches for his phone the way a man reaches for proof that he matters. He checks it, not because he wants to talk to you, but because he wants to see the 2 blue marks next to his last message. The little tick of validation, the small mercy of being chased. There is nothing. He puts the phone down. He tells himself you're processing. He tells himself you'll come around in a day or 2. He goes about his week. He starts the long performance of acting like he isn't waiting for you. He goes to the gym. He goes out with his friends. He says your name once or twice when someone asks about you. Yeah, she was cool, but it wasn't right. And he holds the sentence in his mouth like it tastes fine. It doesn't taste fine. Here's what's actually happening underneath all of this. He thinks the silence is your wound. He assumes you're shattered. He has built a small architecture in his mind where the story you are living in right now is one of collapse, crying, sleeping badly, picking up your phone 50 times a day, drafting something, deleting it, drafting it again. He is sure that's what your apartment looks like at 11 at night. And for the first few days, he might be right. But here's the part that undoes him. Eventually, and it takes longer than you'd expect, you stop reaching for your phone. Not because you've mastered some law of attraction technique. Not because you read a book about detachment. You stop reaching because the new version of you has no use for the old choreography. The version of you who would have begged has actually died. Not metaphorically, structurally. The part of your nervous system that used to light up at the first sign of him pulling away. The part that used to translate his withdrawal into a task you could solve with enough effort. That part has gone quiet. He didn't notice when it happened. He was too busy looking for the version of you he expected, and now he finds it. Let me be clear about what the quiet actually does to a man like this. It isn't silence as punishment. It isn't silence as strategy. You're not sitting in your apartment calculating when he'll break. The quiet I'm describing is the real kind. The kind that arrives because you stopped pretending the dynamic you were in was acceptable. The kind that arrives because you stopped rearranging your life to keep his orbit feeling manageable. The kind that arrives because slowly the center of gravity inside you moved from him back to you. And here's the question he starts to ask himself 3, 4, 6 weeks into it. The question he cannot answer without unsettling something he has spent years protecting. If she isn't chasing, what does that say about me? He asked that question once before with someone else. He didn't like the answer then either. But this time, the question is louder. Because this time, you were different. This time, you weren't performing. You weren't angling for proximity. You weren't staying just to keep the door open. You were in the room, and then you were not in the room, and the room is the same room without you in it, and that is the part he cannot get past. Picture this now, and I want you to stay here for a moment. It's 3 a.m. He's awake. He's not scrolling, because there's nothing left to scroll that isn't a faint version of what he already knows. He's lying in the dark in a room he chose, in a life he chose, in a geometry that he himself drew, and there is one echo inside it he cannot tune out. Your voice. Not the exact words, the cadence. The way you used to ask him what he was thinking. The way you used to say his name like it was the whole sentence. He didn't expect you to occupy the air of the room the way you do. He expected you to disappear instead. That's the part he cannot undo. He prepared for your absence as a thing he could manage. He did not prepare for your absence as a thing that grows. And here's what most people miss about an echo. An echo doesn't stay in the room where it started. An echo moves. It starts in the dark, in the 3 a.m. He didn't plan for, in the bed he shares with no one, in the kitchen where the second mug will never come down from the shelf he's been meaning to empty. Then it follows him into the morning, into the gym, into the small talk at work, into the moment he sees a woman across a street who moves like you. Then it follows him into the next date. The one he goes on to prove he doesn't miss you. The one he sits through with the exact posture of a man who has not moved past anything. He doesn't know what to call it. He says he just didn't feel a connection. He tells his friends he didn't feel a spark, and his friends nod. Because how could he explain what was actually happening? That every new woman's laugh is a quieter version of the laugh he lost the right to hear. Then the echo follows him into the next month, into the next season, into the next version of himself that he tries on, that doesn't fit, that he puts back in the drawer. And what he's left with isn't longing, exactly. Longing is romantic. Longing is what the movies sell. What's left is something much more uncomfortable. What's left is the quiet recognition that he had a woman who did not need him to be anything other than present. And he handed that back to her like a thing he couldn't afford. And now he has the same money, year after year, and the same empty shelf, and the same unfinished choreography with no one on the other side of it. I want to pause on that for a second, because the version of you who would have been destroyed by this, the version who would have called him at 2 a.m., who would have written the long letter, who would have explained herself for the 45th time, that version of you has been quietly replaced. And this is the part nobody warned you about. You do not get to reclaim your dignity without losing the part of you that used to give it away. The two things cancel each other out. The you who chased did so because she believed, somewhere underneath her logic, that chasing was how she earned her place. That being needed was how she kept herself safe. That smallness was how she stayed in the room. That version of you is gone. And the woman who is sitting in her apartment tonight, the one who isn't reaching for her phone, is the one who replaced her. You are not trying to win him back. You are not running a strategy. You are simply orienting again around your own life. And it is dull, and it is unromantic, and most nights it doesn't feel like a victory. Most nights it just feels like living. Here's what most people miss about the dynamic on his side during this period. He starts to write you a message he will never send. He drafts it in his head every week, and every week the draft gets a little more honest and a little less about what he should say. and a little more about what he actually did. He writes the version where he admits it wasn't about timing. He writes the version where he admits it wasn't about space. He writes the version where he admits very quietly that he walked away from something that could have been the closest thing he ever had to a home, and he did it because the home required him to stop being the version of himself he had spent his whole life practicing. He never sends the message. He tells himself it's pride. It isn't pride. Pride is loud. What he's feeling is something much quieter. It's the slow, accurate realization that the apology he owes you would actually have to be accurate. And an accurate apology is one he has never written. And he doesn't know if he has the language for it. So he doesn't send it, but he keeps drafting. I want to explain something else slowly, and I want you to feel the weight of it. The upper hand in this situation isn't something you take. It's something that falls. The way gravity finds the heavier object. The way a glacier does not chase the mountain down. The mountain simply slides into a different shape. You will not feel powerful during this period. You will feel tired. You will feel boring to yourself. You will lie in bed some nights and wonder if your life has shrunk, because your life is smaller without him in it, and the quiet has not yet revealed itself as anything good, and the only thing you have to your name is the long, slow work of showing up for yourself on the days when there is nothing to show off. That is what dignity requires. It is not glamorous. It is not loud. It is not a glow-up. It is a return to yourself on the days when returning is the only useful thing left to do. And here's something most people don't see coming. He didn't expect you to be okay. He expected you to be rattled instead. He has known women before. He has tested this choreography before. He's pulled away and watched them spin. He's pulled away and watched them spiral. He's pulled away and watched them apologize for things they didn't do, just to keep the room from closing. He has never pulled away and watched the room become, if anything, fuller. That's where his confusion lives now. He tracks your social. He sees you out. He sees you in the photo with the friend he always liked. He sees you laughing at something he will never get to hear in person. And what he notices, what is slowly eroding the version of him that was so sure you would beg, is that you don't look like a woman who is waiting. You look like a woman who has somewhere to be. Let me explain something slowly about why this unsettles him more than any long letter could. Because the avoidance pattern depends on one specific thing. It depends on the belief, somewhere deep in his nervous system, that without him, your life is smaller, that you needed him in a way that gave him permission to leave, that the asymmetry of the dynamic, you wanting more, him wanting less, was the actual shape of love, and that no other shape would have worked. When you go quiet in a way that isn't performed, when the quiet is the actual architecture of your life now, he has no map for that. He has no choreography. He has no script he can use to make himself feel safe again. Why does the absence of the chase unsettle him more than any chase could? Because he didn't expect you to be calm. He expected you to be loud instead. The 4 openings at the top of every long message he has ever received from a woman after a breakup. We need to talk. Can you explain? I just want to understand. Where do we stand? Those words gave him a stage. They let him perform the part of the man who was being pulled back without wanting to be pulled. He got to say, I just don't have it in me right now, and feel briefly honest. He doesn't have that stage anymore. Because you are not asking where you stand. Because you are not making yourself small enough to ask. Now let me walk you through what is actually happening in his head during this time. Slowly, calmly, because this isn't revenge and it isn't strategy. This is what an avoidance mind does once a woman stops confirming his narrative about her. Week 1, he is relieved. He tells himself he made the right call. He goes to dinner with someone he met online just to prove to himself that there is other warmth out there. He does not feel other warmth if he feels the architecture of the date precisely. The chair, the menu, the wine, the way her laugh arrives on time. None of it reaches him. He goes home and tells himself the spark wasn't there. He does not mention that no spark has been anywhere for a long time. Week 2. The relief hardens into something less comfortable. He begins to wonder, in a voice he keeps turning down in his head, what you are doing right now, not because he wants you, because he wants to be the answer to the question of what you are doing right now. He wants to be the thing that crosses your mind at 11 p.m. When the room finally got quiet and you picked up your phone, he checks. He doesn't see what he expected to see. Week 3. He starts to wonder whether the version of the breakup he told his friends is the actual version. He replays the conversation. He wonders if there was a moment where he could have said something different. He wonders if he was capable, in that moment, of saying something different. He is not sure. Week 4. He is in the shower, or driving alone, or looking at the ceiling in the dark, and he hears very faintly the echo of your voice. He didn't expect you to live in his head the way you do. He expected you to be removed instead. And here is the slow architecture I want you to see, because it will help you understand why he will never fully recover from your quiet. It starts as a thought. Just one. I wonder how she's doing. He pushes it out. It comes back. I wonder what she's doing tonight. He pushes it out. It comes back in a more private form. I wonder if she ever thinks about the way I. And he stops the sentence there because the next word is his own name attached to yours. And he is not ready to look at that. So the thought goes underground. It doesn't disappear. It just moves below the level where he can argue with it rationally. Then the thought becomes a sound. The sound of your laugh. The sound of the way you used to pronounce a word that nobody else pronounces that way. The sound of your voice saying his name like it was a finished sentence. Then the sound becomes a habit. He checks your social at the same time every day. Not because he's stalking, because the absence of information has become harder for him to carry than the information itself. He wants to see proof that you're okay, and he is horrified every time by how much he wants that proof. Then the habit hardens into a pattern. He is now the man who checks. He is now the man who waits. He is now the man who, in some quiet corner of his day, is orbiting you, the one he told himself he could just walk away from. And there is a particular kind of reckoning that happens in a man's brain when this shift occurs. And I want you to see it clearly, because this is what he will never be able to say to you directly. He begins to suspect, in a place below language, that you were the upper hand all along, not because you asked for it, not because you performed confidence, but because you were willing to be the one who stayed until you weren't. And the moment you stopped staying, the entire dynamic lost its center. He didn't expect you to stop needing the dynamic. He expected you to keep needing it forever. Because for him, and this is the part that will be hard to hear, the dynamic was the relationship. He didn't want you. He wanted the choreography. He wanted the small rituals of being pursued. He wanted the relief of withdrawal that proved he was necessary. He wanted the asymmetry, because the asymmetry was the only version of intimacy he knew how to survive. And when you took the asymmetry off the table, when you walked away from the dance, he didn't lose a girlfriend. He lost the only version of closeness he had ever been able to tolerate. Let me be clear about something here. I am not telling you to be cold. I am not telling you to manufacture absence. You are not running a campaign. You are not playing a longer game than he played. You are simply allowing the natural consequences of his choice to exist. You are letting his withdrawal land where it was always going to land. And here's the thing I want you to hear. The thing he will never admit. He didn't expect your quiet to be dignified. He expected it to be needy instead. Somewhere in his mind, there was a category. Women who left loudly. Women who sent the long message. Women who made sure the ending sounded like an ending. Who gave him something to argue with. Who left him the role of the man who had been left. He had a script for those women. He could respond. He could move on. He could even, after enough time, feel briefly tender about them in a way that proved to himself that he could love after all. You are not in that category, because your quiet is not the absence of a fight. It is the absence of him. There is no fight. There is no wounded message. There is no frantic attempt to recover the dynamic. There is just you in your apartment on a Tuesday night doing the dishes. And the dignity of that, the sheer unbothered presence of it, is what he cannot get past. I want to walk you through something now, slowly. And I want you to be honest with yourself about whether any of this is true for you. When he left, the version of you that left with him, the version that was willing to keep chasing, willing to keep performing smallness for the sake of staying in the room, that version is gone. Not because you killed her, because she had no soil to grow in once you stopped watering her. You stopped dialing because the dialing was hurting you. You stopped writing because the writing was a private way of staying small. You stopped showing up to the places he liked to see you at because showing up had become a tax you no longer wanted to pay. And what replaced her is not the woman he fell for. That woman kept trying. That woman kept rearranging. That woman kept her face soft even when her stomach was in knots. That woman was willing to listen to him explain the same thing for the 40th time. That woman tolerated the orbit because she believed that being in the orbit was being in his life. What replaced her is harder to love in the moment and easier to love later. Let me explain something about the way you have changed, and I want to do it slowly, because the change is the kind that doesn't announce itself. It shows up first in the small things. You stop texting him first on the weekends, not because of a rule you're following, because the impulse simply isn't there anymore. You stop saving the article you used to send him because you'd think of him when you read it. You stop walking past his favorite coffee shop at lunch, not because of any strategy, but because there is nothing left you are trying to prove by passing it. Then it shows up in your posture at dinner with friends. You're not rebuilding yourself on stage. You're not narrating the breakup. You're not asking for proof that you did the right thing. You are simply, quietly, more present in conversations you used to half listen to because half your attention was somewhere else. Then it shows up in your sleep. The first month was bad. You replayed. You checked. You reread. You stalled at the edge of every small grief. But slowly, and no one told you this was allowed to happen slowly, your sleep came back. Not the same sleep, a different one. The sleep of a person who is no longer waiting for a ringtone. And here's the part nobody's going to like hearing. You will probably never get the apology. A man like this, a man whose entire architecture depends on the narrative that he was right to leave, will not write the accurate apology. The accurate apology is structurally impossible for him right now. It would require him to admit, in plain English, that he had a woman who was willing to meet him in the middle. And he turned around and walked the other way for reasons that have nothing to do with her and everything to do with the only version of intimacy his nervous system has ever been able to tolerate. He will not write that. He might, 2 years from now, send you a long message that sounds like an apology but functions as a monologue. He will say, "I just wasn't ready. You deserved more. I was scared." And he will mean every word of it, and none of it will be the apology. It will be the confession he needed to write for himself dressed up as a message to you. And here is what to do with that when it comes. You read it. You do not reply that night. You wait. And when you reply, if you reply with the same dignity you've been carrying this whole time. You don't punish him. You don't reward him. You don't reopen the dynamic. You simply tell him the truth of what he missed. Now, I want to talk about the small, real, kind things. And I want to be specific here, because this isn't the part where I tell you to manifest your future self. This is the part where I tell you to make dinner with a friend you lost touch with while you were chasing him. To go for a walk tonight, not the loud kind, the kind where you don't have your headphones in. To move your body with the specific pointlessness of a person who is no longer training to be attractive to anyone. To retie the loose ends in your own life that went slack when he was the center of it. Pick up the book you keep reshelving. Call the friend who texted you in October that you never replied to. Stop avoiding the photo from the trip you took together Either delete it cleanly or keep it on purpose, but don't let it sit in your camera roll like a thing you're afraid of. Move your furniture 1 inch, buy the small thing for your desk, reorganize the nightstand. None of this is symbolic. All of it is real. All of it is the slow, dull, unglamorous work of the quiet rebuilding of a life you forgot you were allowed to be the only author of. Here's what most people miss about this rebuilding. You are not rebuilding a version of yourself that will win him back. You are rebuilding a version of yourself that does not in any way depend on whether he ever knocks on your door again. The two things feel similar from the outside. They are not similar inside. The first version is a strategy with a finish line, and the moment the finish line shows up, the moment he calls, the moment he shows up at the restaurant you said you'd be at, the work collapses back into a dynamic where he is the judge of whether you did it right. The second version has no finish line. It does not care about his verdict. It is the slow, full-oriented life of a woman who, somewhere in the middle of this, stops needing the answer to the question, does he miss me? Because the question is no longer the most important thing in the room. That is the quiet you should be moving toward. And here's something most people don't see coming about what happens after that quiet shows up. The men you meet next will be different. Not because you became magnetic in some abstract sense, because the dynamic has changed at the level of where your attention lives. You will be less available to perform smallness. You will be less willing to be the one who texts first at midnight. You will be less patient with being told, I just need space by a man whose space takes 6 weeks to fill up with someone else. And this isn't glow up language. This is returned to yourself language. You will know with a clarity that no longer requires thinking about it, that you cannot build a real intimate life with a man who treated the dynamic the way he treated yours. You will know it the way you know that the floor is underneath you, not as a belief, as a feeling. That is the dignity I'm describing, not the loud kind, the structural kind. Let me be clear about one thing before we land this. You are not running a strategy. You are not playing the longer game. You are not winning. What you are doing is something much harder than any of those things. You are allowing the natural consequence of what he did to exist. You are not interfering with it. You are not speeding it up. You are not narrating it to your friends as victory. You are not checking his social as data. You are just living, slowly, quietly, without the same hunger for proof you once carried. And the strange thing, the thing nobody told you would happen, is that the quiet wasn't the absence of him. The quiet was the return of you. I want to close this in the place where the whole thing started, with the man at 3 a.m. who cannot get your voice out of his head. He is still awake. He is still drafting the message he will never send. He is still wondering in the place below language whether the version of himself that walked away from you is the version he wanted to be. He didn't expect the quiet to be heavy. He expected it to be empty instead. It is heavy. He can feel his own gravity for the first time in a long time, pulling his entire architecture back into one place. He is not going to call you. He is not ready to. And for the first time in his life, not ready is not a performance. It's just an accurate sentence about what he has and what he doesn't have the language to recover. And you are not the woman he walked away from. You are not the woman who chased. You are not the woman who auditioned for him every week for the right to stay in his orbit. You are not performing anything right now. You are simply here, in your own room, in your own life, in the quiet you did not choose to weaponize and do not owe anyone an explanation for. He didn't expect your quiet to be full. He expected it to be empty instead. It isn't. He doesn't miss you because you left. He misses who he was when you stayed.